as you know, we've been doing a series on stewardship from the beginning of the year, and I hope it's been really good for you. It's been really good for me. I think in life, we tend to get really attached to when we make a certain effort, we expect a certain outcome. And we kind of hold on to the things that we've put our effort into. And it can become like a symbol of who we are. And it really can be hard to let go of those things sometimes. But the stewardship series has been, for me, a really good reminder to remember that nothing that we have is we keep forever. Most of the things that we have or we accumulate in life, we can't take with us. And even some of the things that we can take with us aren't as meaningful in the spirit world. So having this series has been a really good reminder for me that I'm a steward of the things in my life, the people in my life, the things that I own, the people I'm responsible for, my time, my limitations. These are things that I've been entrusted with as an opportunity to be able to invest into it and then make it better and then pass it on to the next person who's going to take care of it. I think it's a really great perspective for life. Instead of thinking, everything's mine and me, it's about, what can I leave for others? How can I improve things? How can I invest to make it better? And also, what is God's will in all of this? What does God want for me in all of this? We could just see life as a bunch of random things. The things that happen in life and the family that I was born into, the things that are happening in the world. They could just, we could just see them as random. Many people see things that way, right, in life, that it's just random, it's just the way the world is. God doesn't have anything to do with it or whatever. But I think that as people of faith, we understand or we recognize that there's something more happening in life than just a bunch of random occurrences. And personally, for me, I find that to be a much more hopeful perspective. That the things that we have in our life, our abilities, our talents, the people, they are a gift. They are a gift that we need to treasure and do the best that we can with. This is a quote from our founder, Reverend Moon. He said, "Everything has meaning and a reason, and there is no such thing as a total failure. Tears roll down your face when you cry, but if your mind falls down with your tears, there is no hope. However, if you are determined and your mind rises, then you can utilize every situation for the best. The person who is capable of going deep down into the valley is also capable of jumping to the pinnacle of the mountain. The pinnacle is never linked to another pinnacle, but to the valley, and together they have a common destiny." This is a universal principle. Those in the valley can one day come to the pinnacle of the mountain. So I really like this imagery of the hills and the valleys, like Chelsea so beautifully sang. This concept comes up in the Bible in a number of places, like in here I've got a couple verses from Psalm. "Even though I walk through the darkest valley, I will fear no evil, for you are with me. Your rod and your staff, they comfort me." And also from Psalm, I lift up my eyes to the mountains. Where does my help come from? My help comes from the Lord, the maker of heaven and earth. So today I want to talk about stewardship of our hills and our valleys. It's a little bit of a different concept than what we've been talking about with, things like our relationships, our family members, our time, our material possessions. This is a little bit different. This is a little bit more of an abstract concept, but I hope that I can convey it in a meaningful way today. In a way, this is kind of like, how can I be a steward of my life? How can I come to terms with and embrace the life that I've lived up until now? And not just the things I like about my life and my successes, but also maybe some of the painful experiences or the painful memories that I've had to experience in my life. Sometimes we just want the good and we don't want the bad. Sometimes we want the hills or we want the peaks of the mountains, but we don't want the valleys. And unfortunately, as we experience in life, they tend to go hand in hand. So being a steward of our journey, our choices, our successes, our failures, our victories, our mistakes, is also important. So in the last few weeks, I've had some really interesting opportunities for conversation. And I think maybe not by coincidence, but two conversations in particular have really brought me back in time, remembering some experiences in my life, and some things that I'm very happy about, and some things that I feel a little bit, like they were dark times in my life. But when we were in Las Vegas, there was a young man, and we got to talking with him, and he's in the matching process right now, and he had a lot of questions for us. And one of his questions was, how do you know when to commit? How do you know when to say, make the decision, right? Because in our faith, the matching process is very intentional, right? There's a whole process through which you get to know one another and really go deep into, like, what are your life goals? Like, what's really important to you in life? And, kind of taking time, doing conditions together, getting to know one another's families before you make the decision. And interestingly enough, maybe interestingly, maybe not interestingly, but I thought it was interesting that, you go through all of that process, but at the end of the day, you still have to make that decision. You still have to say yes or no. And that's a really difficult thing to do because, you don't want to take your commitments lightly, right? Especially when it comes to your eternal spouse, your eternal life together and creating a family and things like that. And he asked us, he asked us a lot of questions, but a lot of the questions really hinged around, how do you make that decision? How do you know you're making the right decision? And it was really kind of a cool conversation for Adonia and I because it kind of took us back to, many years ago. And our situation was a little bit different. But at the end of the day, I recognize it's really hard sometimes to make a decision when this could potentially be the best thing in my life. It could potentially be the worst thing in my life. It's like you kind of have some idea, especially if you grew up in a family. There's a lot of like turmoil or dysfunction. You really have to ask yourself, like, how do I avoid that? And for us, when we were talking with him, one thing that kind of came to us was like, there's so many things in life that if you knew what challenges you were going to be confronted with in order to be able to make a happy family, in order to be able to raise good children, in order to be able to build a successful business, or whatever it is that you're confronted with in your life at this time, a lot of people would just give up before they started. If you know everything that's involved with raising children, like if we knew what was involved with having twins and all the sleepless nights and all the cleaning and the poop and the crying and just everything that came with it, and it's also not even like a journey that you're their parent when they're babies or toddlers or children, but it's eternal commitment, right? They're your child even when they're 80 years old. Even when you're in the spirit world and you're long dead, you're still their parent, right? And they may not need you as much when, when you're older and they're older, but that relationship's always going to be there. And there's always going to be some, some responsibility, right? I would think. I'm not there yet, but, kids are getting older. Twins have turned 13, and they're getting older and older and already almost taller than us. And it kind of blows my mind how fast time has gone by. And if you dwell in this area where you think, where you focus on all the challenges, then it's very hard to commit to anything. But if you, and this is kind of our advice for him, we said, if we had known all the challenges that our marriage was going to encompass in the last 18 years, all the arguments that we would have gone through, all the times where we didn't want to talk to each other, all the times where we disagreed on many things, and it would be very hard to look at all of that and be like, oh yeah, that's what I want. Absolutely. Yes, without a doubt. But at the same time, I told him, if we look at our family today and our kids and our relationship that we've built over the last 18 years, that we forged together, that we overcame so many difficulties and built a relationship of what it is today, and I knew what that relationship would look like, and I knew what that family would look like 18 years ago, there's no way I would have said no. There's nobody could have convinced me otherwise. So it's an interesting dichotomy, right? Like, if we know what the potential is, if we have the dream, and this is often why people, go into a new venture, right? Because they can see the potential. They know what they want. And therefore, it doesn't matter what the sacrifice is. It doesn't matter what what you have to give up. It's worth it. And I'll figure it out along the way. But if we just focus on, what the sacrifice is, and we lose sight of what the hope is or what the dream is, then it can be easy to give up before we even start, or it can be easy to give up along the way. So when we see the valleys and we think about the valleys, it can be very hard to make any kind of commitment. But if we think about the peaks, if we think about the potential, if we think about what could be after all of the heartache and the effort put in and the difficult conversations, then everything is worth it. And I think that that's often why, as we get older in life, we stop growing internally. Physically too, I guess. I don't know. Because when we're young, we just get excited about what's possible. And we don't mind taking risks. We don't mind doing something crazy. But as we get older, we have more experiences that we can see, if I do this, I'm going to have to go through this. Like if you take up a new hobby, or if you decide maybe you're somebody, I'm 38 years old, and maybe I decide, you know what, I really want to learn to ski. Well, I'm probably not going to do it, because I'm going to think about I'm not like a teenager anymore. I'm probably going to hurt myself. I'm going to run into a tree. I'm going to hurt my knees. Something bad's going to happen. Or at the very least, I'm going to be so sore. And then do I really want to do that? The mindset of an adult, right? It's so different than when you're not thinking about so much being an Olympic or pro skier, mostly thinking about, what are the trials that I'm going to have to deal with? What are the difficulties I'm going to have to deal with to be able to get good at that? And that often will stop us before we even try. But on the other hand, I also had the opportunity I've been emailing back and forth with a member of our church, not here in Denver, but she's kind of been going through a bit of a crisis of faith. And I have we've been talking a lot, and I shared with her some of the experiences that I went through 8 years ago when I really did my soul searching, and I really questioned everything about the church and also about God. And that 8 years ago, that was a very dark time for me. And when I was going through it, it felt like hell. It felt like I was going through the valley of death. I was questioning everything I ever grew up with, and it was very uncomfortable. And I have memories of just shaking, physically shaking, and emotionally shaken, to embrace the possibility that everything I invested into my life up until that point maybe was a lie. That was a very uncomfortable experience, and I'm sure that if you've ever done that, you know what I'm talking about. But that was 8 years ago. 9, thank you. And I actually was so grateful that we had the conversation, because I was remembering a lot of things that I had forgotten about that journey. And I just remembered how, even though that was such an uncomfortable experience, it was such a liberating experience in the end. And it's actually one of my fondest memories now. My fondest memory of really going deep and challenging everything I knew to be true, and seeking out every dark corner, trying to find every little bit of information, trying to, questioning people and calling people and be like, why did you join the church? And, what about this thing? And what about that thing? And rereading the divine principle and all these things that I did in a state of true seeking answers. There was something very genuine about that I'm just not there anymore. Like, I'm like, I did that. I'm like, no, I don't know, maybe that it'll happen again someday where I really have to dig deeper and find my faith on a deeper level. But it was a special time in my life, and it's precious to me. And in some ways, there's a part of me that, just due to the complete uncomfortableness of the experience, there's a part of me that wants to forget it. There's a part of me that wants to leave it behind. And I think that that's often the way it is when we are looking at bad experiences in our life or painful experiences in our life, because that soul searching was rooted in a painful experience. That's usually the way it goes. We feel hurt, we feel betrayed, we feel let down, and so we seek for something deeper. We seek for something else. We try to find answers. We feel like what I have, my level of faith right now, is not enough. I need something else. I need something more. But part of life is finding a way to be stewards of even those experiences. What were the lessons that I gained? How did that help me to become the person that I am today? How can those experiences how could God use those experiences to get me to where I am today? How can I use the lessons that I learned and the experiences I had to benefit somebody else who may be going through what I went through? These are things that we don't think about when we're going through the struggle. These are things that we don't think about when we're going through the pain. But I think that they are also important things for us to not try to ignore the experiences that we've had in our life and just maybe embrace the good ones that we like, but also to embrace maybe the bad too, the challenges. And I think that also as we go through life and we go through our ups and our downs, we go through our hills and our valleys, it's very important for us to remember that when we're in the difficulties, not to give up, to be hopeful, to be grateful, but also that when we're doing well in life, we feel like I'm at the top of my life, I'm doing really well, this is the culmination of so many things, to also remember to give thanks to God, to not be proud, not to be boastful, and to have compassion for people who maybe aren't where I'm at today, and to not be arrogant. And then also, on top of that, when we're down, to also remember to not get bitter and not to get resentful, because that can happen very easily too. Here's This is from Ecclesiastes. Better is the end of a thing than its beginning, and the patient in spirit is better than the proud in spirit. Be not quick in your spirit to become angry, for anger lodges in the bosom of fools. Say not, why were the former days better than these? For it is not from wisdom that you ask this. Actually, when I was first thinking about this sermon, one of the things I thought a lot about was Jesus. I thought a lot about how, how much effort Jesus made to reach people and to convince people and to teach people and to love people. First and foremost, his own disciples, right? His own direct followers, the people who left their lives behind, their jobs, their families, to join Jesus. And I was thinking a lot about how I think it's really important sometimes to really connect with the humanity of Jesus and put ourselves in his shoes. I think it's really easy to be like, well, Jesus is the Son of God, he's a perfect man. Of course he did things the way he did things, but I think it's really important to sometimes put ourselves in his shoes, especially near the end of his ministry and the end of his life, where he kind of accepted that the only possible path for him at that point was to go the way of the cross. But also at the same time recognizing that even his followers, his closest followers, people who were even closer to him than his own family, couldn't really understand what he was doing. They couldn't really understand what he was talking about. And some of the last things that he did while he was alive was to sit down and have dinner together and to wash their feet, to serve them. Even though at the same time he was saying, one of you will betray me. And even though he knew that all of them would basically, scatter after his passing. I think that we really underestimate the quality of a human being who's directly connected with the heart of God. I think you really need to have God's heart to be able to embrace people and love people on that level. I couldn't do it. I'd be like, what are you even doing here? Get away from me, I put all this effort into you and, it's fake. But I think somehow Jesus could see beyond also even his own life. He could see the foundation that he was laying for history. And, He was a man that wouldn't get stuck in the valley. He was always looking at the mountains. And so I just have a few last quotes to share with you. These are all from our founder before I finish and wrap up. How to digest and conquer your environment is the question. Don't ever try to escape life, but feel challenged and persevere on your way. On an uneven road, ups and downs are to be expected, but where there are peaks, there are valleys at another time. When you find yourself in a dungeon, you must expect that in the next moment, God will bless you with the most grace. God has been working for thousands of years to bring mankind up from the lowest point of human misery to the pinnacle of his ideal. Many have tried to follow God up the mountain. Women have tried to follow, but as the road got steeper and more rugged, they decided to drop out. Men have not been any different. They were determined to follow, but halfway up they also dropped out. God brought provisions for the journey, and he fed his followers along the way. But as time passed, they saw that God had less and less. Being afraid for themselves, they said, God, we thought we knew you, but you are not the almighty God we thought you were. We are going our own way. This realistically describes how man has deserted God. God knows when you suffer misfortune or are troubled. When he sees that even at the bottom of misery and misfortune, you still have room to be thankful to him, he will shed tears over you. When you overcome such a test with thanksgiving under any circumstances, you shall be blessed. You may feel that you are finished and you are sinking down to the valley of death. But as long as you have this way of life, you will never end your life at the bottom of the valley. Instead, you will go over the Mount of Glory. Please join me in prayer. Good morning, our most beloved Heavenly Parent. Thank you so much for this day where we can all come together as brothers and sisters and refocus and recenter our lives on you, Heavenly Parent. All of us are in different places in our life right now, and I don't know where everybody is. I'm sure that some of us are at the top of the mountain, and some of us are at the bottom of the valley, and everywhere in between. Heavenly Parent, I pray that no matter where we are, that we can offer our place in life to you, our journey, everything that we've been through up until this point, Heavenly Parent, with gratitude and thanksgiving, because we know that you never intended for us to suffer. You never intended for us to go through many of the challenges that we've experienced in life, Heavenly Parent. But we know that you will use our suffering and our challenges for good when we overcome them, Heavenly Parent. As we come out of those challenges and we become bigger and better people, and we learn lessons, Heavenly Parent, and we make hard choices, that you will always be there to really lift us up, to love us, to embrace us, Heavenly Parent. I pray that we can be the stewards of our whole life, of all the experiences that we've had up until now, the good and the bad and the ugly. Heavenly Parent, we offer all those things to you. Heavenly Parent, we hope and pray that even through our mistakes, even through our heartaches, Heavenly Parent, that we can be a service to you, that we can return beauty to you, that we can love you and appreciate you and be grateful to you. And we can extend that same warmth and grace to the people in our lives, Heavenly Parent. Heavenly Parent, please help us to let go of any bitterness or resentment or anger that we may be harboring in our hearts. Please help us to let go of our disappointments. And Heavenly Parent, allow us to offer our lives to you and to seek for what it is that you hope for each and every one of us, Heavenly Parent. What is it you hope to see in our lives? What is it that you hope that we can overcome and share with others, and not only as individuals and families, but as a community? How can we learn from our mistakes? How can we offer something of greater beauty and value to you? Please help us to sincerely be grateful for our lives, Heavenly Parent. We talk about it a lot, and it's so much easier said than done, Heavenly Parent. Please give us the strength to be like Jesus, who even in the final moments of his life, even though he knew he was being betrayed, even though he knew the people he was serving would abandon him, could still love them with your heart. We know that just with our human emotions and limitations, we can't. But with your heart and your love and your perspective towards your children, we can, Heavenly Parent. We pray for that in our lives, and we thank you for this time that we could be together. Pray, Heavenly Parent, that through this message and this time together, we can be more full sons and daughters to you. And I offer this prayer in our names as Blessed Central Families. Amen and adieu. Thank you so much.